When we think about destructive forces, we usually picture bombs or armies, right? But what if the most destructive thing in the world was just a line? A single line, drawn on a map, probably by someone who'd never even set foot there. In this explainer, we're going to dig into how one of those lines didn't just divide a country, it completely shattered a man's world.
They drew one line and destroyed me totally. Just let that sink in. These are the words of an elderly man looking back on his life, and they're really the heart of our story today. This quote perfectly captures the real human cost of the 1947 partition of India. Because for him, this wasn't some abstract political event you read about in a textbook. No, for him, it was the end of everything.
Listen to that again. You can just feel the pain in those words, can't you? A pain that decades clearly haven't erased. And get this, he wasn't just a bystander. He was in it. He was part of the movement for independence. He was literally tending to wounded freedom fighters. And his reward for all that? A life broken in two by a line on a map.
So to really understand what was lost, we have to see what was there to begin with. Let's go back in time, before the line, to meet a young man named Dr. Prabir in his hometown of Dinajpur. This was a man whose future felt as solid and as real as the ground he walked on.
See, Dr. Prabir wasn't just any old doctor. People called him the Daktarbabu, a title of immense respect. He was a graduate from a top medical college, had a successful practice, and lived in a sprawling ancestral home, complete with servants and cattle. He was a father of three with their futures all planned out, and he even had his own dreams, maybe a private practice, maybe even moving to London one day. His world was stable, prosperous, and made perfect sense.
So when the first rumors of partition started to bubble up, his mindset was pure idealism. He truly believed that the bonds between people, his neighbors, his friends, were way stronger than politics. The idea of being forced to leave his home, to him, it was just unthinkable. We are brothers, he thought. Who would want me to leave?
But that beautiful, optimistic way of seeing the world, well, it was about to have a head-on collision with a much, much harsher reality. The whispers of division got louder, and the first cracks started to appear in Dr. Probir's world of certainty. This was the warning he got from his friend Dutta, a jeweler. What a stark, pragmatic thing to say. It just cuts right through all of Prabir's hope, doesn't it? Dutta saw what was really coming. He understood that for some people, chaos isn't a tragedy, it's an opportunity. And then, a sign. Literally a sign. One day, Probir notices his friend Dutta's jewelry shop, once called the Pride of Dinajpur, had a new line on its sign, now in Calcutta. It was a quiet little change, but the message was loud and clear. The smart money, the pragmatic people, were already building their escape routes. And right here, you can see the two realities pulling apart. On one side, you have Probir, saying things like, "We all speak Bangla, nothing will change." On the other side, his friends are secretly opening bank accounts in Calcutta. He's saying, "We have to trust our leaders," while they're quietly making plans to move their families. He's insisting, "This land is mine, I will stay." And they're pleading with him to leave while he still can. They were living in two different worlds.
Then the threat wasn't abstract anymore. It became terrifyingly real. A local shopkeeper, a man named Shambhu, was rushed into his hospital. He'd been stabbed by thugs who were screaming, "Go away from our place." For 6 straight hours, Prabir fought to save his life. The violence was no longer a rumor. It was right there, on his operating table. After that, the debate was over. The warnings had all come true. Now, the only thing that mattered was survival. This was the breaking point, the moment that forced Probir and his family into a desperate journey in the dark. And look how quickly it all fell apart. For years, it was just rumors, and Probir held on to his optimism. But then, in early 1947, his friends start to leave. The first attacks happen. By the middle of the year, the army is on the streets, cars are burning. And just days before the official partition, the choice is made for him. He has to run. In a matter of months, his peaceful town turned into a powder keg. Can you just imagine what that meant? Leaving everything behind? Not just a building, but a home that held 3 generations of memories. He left his trusted servants, people who were like family. He left Kajli, the family's cow, and he had to leave Milky, their beloved little dog. He left them all behind with a single promise, one he was absolutely certain he could keep. He would be back. Because that's what he truly believed. This wasn't forever. In his mind, it was just a temporary retreat. He'd get his family to safety in Calcutta, and then he'd come back home. He pictured it perfectly. One day, a letter would arrive from the hospital, asking him to come back to work,
and his world would be set right again.
So in Calcutta, staying with relatives, Probir waited. Every single day he checked the post, just clinging to that sliver of hope. He waited for 2 agonizing months. And then, finally, 2 letters arrived.
Think about that. 2 months where your entire past, your entire future, just hangs in the balance, all depending on a single piece of paper. He wasn't just waiting for news, he was waiting for his life to be given back to him.
The first blow was cold and bureaucratic. It was from the hospital, the one he thought would welcome him back. Instead, it said his services were herewith terminated because he was absent from his post, fired. With a few typed words, his professional identity was just erased.
And then came the second letter, the final soul-crushing blow. This one was from his servant, Hari. It said that Milky, his dog, had refused to eat after they left and had died just 10 days later. This small, personal tragedy told him what no official document ever could. There was nothing to go back to. Home was gone forever.
The hope that had kept him going was now completely extinguished. All that was left was the echo of that loss, the ghost of a life that would haunt him for the rest of his days. The line on the map had finally drawn a line straight through his heart.
And the contrast is just brutal. The dream was to be a respected doctor in his homeland. The reality? He was a refugee. The dream was a legacy for his children. The reality? His house was burned to the ground. A secure future completely extinguished by 2 pieces of paper.
After receiving those letters, Probir suffered a complete breakdown. And his words show you just how deep the trauma was. He became trapped in the past, asking when the carriage, the Tonga, would come to take him to work. He'd remind his family, do not forget to give the deworming medicine to Milky. He was living in a world that didn't exist anymore, caring for a pet that was already gone.
Which brings us back to this map. And this line. It doesn't look the same now, does it? It's not just geography. Now you can see the invisible wounds, the scars it left behind. It's not just a line on the land. It was a line that ran through the hearts of millions of people. People just like Dr. Probir.
And that's the question we're left with. A line on a map seems like such a simple thing. You can measure its length in miles. But how do you measure the invisible lines it draws through a family, a community, through a single human heart? That's something you can't measure at all.